Hello, my friend, and welcome to Secure and Insecure, hosted by me, Johnny Seifert. This is a celebrity mental health podcast where I say it's okay to not be okay. And whether you're watching or listening, click that follow button, leave a rating and a review, and let's keep spreading the word it's okay to not be okay. Now, my guest today is a West End sensation. I first saw her in Murder Ballad over 10 years ago, and since then, she's become one of those faces that are just synonymous with the theatre industry. And I'm so glad that when I think of the theatre and I think of the arts, I think of her with roles in Cats, We Will Rock You, Wicked, blah, blah, blah. She's just there. That's been a constant in our lives. And I think that's what we needed through the pandemic when we looked at the theatre and beyond. And I'm so delighted that in a couple of weeks' time, on Monday, the 21st of April, you can see her in her Westway session at the Vaudeville Theatre, which I cannot wait to see. So without further ado, I'm delighted to welcome to Secure the Insecure, the queen of the theatre, the most beautiful voice, and the author of Bumpkin to Broadway. It's Kerry Ellis. Hello, Kerry.
Thank you very much. That was a very kind introduction.
Well, I never know what to think of a one-woman show and a one-person show. And me and my dad came and saw you at Murder Ballad, and I think it was at the Cambridge Arts Theatre by Leicester Square Station, and we were
Mhm.
just mesmerised. It was the first time I've been to a one-person show, first time I'd seen you, and that was 10 years ago. And I was like, wow. And then every time I see the theatre things and I see Kerry Adams, I'm like, yes, I'm coming to this.
Mhm. Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, the reason that we're doing the show at the Vaudeville with Westway, I went on tour last year at the end of the year, and I took a tour all around the UK called Kerry Ellis, Queen of the West End, and that was a one-woman show, and it was myself, my wonderful MD, musical director Craig Adams, and we had a screen on stage, and basically I showed some videos, showed some clips, told my story, sang some songs, But what was lovely about it was that it was really intimate. I was playing people's hometowns, people's home theatres that they know and love. We did about 45 dates all over the country, which was insane. But what was lovely about it was actually going to people in their own hometowns with the theatres that they care and love about, but actually getting to meet people because these theatres are, I don't know, 400 or 500 seaters. They're not the big kind of barn concert halls. So I could actually have time meeting people and talking to them and, hearing their stories about, I don't know, when they came to London and saw me in this show, or when they flew to New York and saw me in that show, or their connections with me over the years. And that's what made the tour really special. So we're going out to get again next year, or this year it is actually, with the same tour. Um, but Westway, who produced my last album, the Kings and Queens album, said, "Why don't you do a London date in the middle of it and share that flavour of that show in the centre of town?" So that's kind of what we decided to do. We decided to make an intimate one-woman show that's highlights of my journey and my career, with a few extra songs in along the way, for people that saw the tour. So it's slightly different. I've done London gigs before where I play a big theatre and I sing lots of big kind of songs and have a big band and stuff. But this is quite different. This is something very intimate. I'll be telling some stories. It's quite raw. I sit there with my musical director. We talk, we sing, I show some clips. So to do something like that in the centre of London is going to be really lovely.
And is it hard for you, Kerry, someone who's, and we'll go through your career in a sec, but someone who's played lots of characters in the theatre to kind of think, well, look, if people are going to see Wicked and they're seeing Alphabet and that's me, that's great. But they're there for Wicked. This is the chance to really strip it back and go, people are actually there for me. It doesn't matter what I've been in. It doesn't matter the shows. It's actually me. And that's the first time that you really get that self-love, that it's not, oh, I've been to Wicked. Oh, I've been to Cats. It's, I've been to Kerry Ellis.
Yeah, which is lovely. And also to be able to share things such as, the ins and outs of theatres, or like how things have come around, how I've got certain jobs, funny things along the way, funny things that have happened on stage, who I've met, who I've worked with, stories of in the studio, like be able to share those kind of things is quite nice. And I think people, like you say, they know me and have seen me in various shows, so they know the characters that I've played and the performances that I've given. So to hear something a little bit more unique, I think is quite interesting for people. And it seemed to go down really well on the tour. People really loved it. So it's going to be nice to do that in town. And also it's slightly different to, like, I've played intimate venues like the Crazy Cocks. They're almost jazz bars. Again, they have a very different vibe to them. So this is something, it's just like an intimate evening, an evening with me. And it's quite, it's very live and it's very real, and that's what I love about it. It's different. I can hear the audience, I can see them. The vaudeville is a playhouse, so it's not like a barn of a theatre. It's just nice, and you're really close. I can see the audience, they can really see me, and it's like a conversation with me singing a few songs, very up close and personal.
And I think if we use your memoir title From Bumpkin to Broadway as the pinnacle of this, is going, yes, there was this Kerry growing up, which we'll talk about, and now I am the Broadway star. I deserve to be on this stage. And whether you're an audience of one, an audience of 100, an audience of 1,000, I'm still Kerry Ellis. When you strip it all back, I'm still that raw Kerry Ellis. So let's go back and talk about who that Kerry Ellis is through the decades. So take me back to school. You grew up in Suffolk, went to Stowmarket High School, where, well, all I found is DCI Marsden from EastEnders and Becky from Newsround went to. That's the three of you. It's a dinner party waiting to happen. What were you like in school, Carrie? How did you find your experience there?
I remember it just being okay. I wasn't one of those people that loved being at school. And I think it's because I loved all the stuff I was doing outside of school. Even from an early age, I was part of a local dance school. I was doing local theatre shows. I was doing, little local competitions. And that's what I lived for. I did a bit of the school show or whatever, music was going on. I would be part of it. So that I kind of enjoyed. But I mean, school, it was happy enough, but I think I always knew the ulterior motive. I always knew that there was where I was going. So for me, to be committed at school, I think was the right thing to do. And I kind of gave it my all, but I just had a distraction the whole time. I loved my drama classes. I loved sport at school. I was really sporty. I wasn't particularly academic. I found it quite difficult, but I had friends. I had a happy time. I didn't, I don't have one of like a tragic school story. And I was lucky to grow up in Suffolk. That was a nice place to live. We were in the country. It was, it's a good school. I was quite lucky to grow up there.
But what was that Kerry like when she went on that stage for the first time? For my research, I see you did the Wizard of Oz. So, to be in that show, which is so iconic, the fact that you're going, okay, look, everything's kind of okay at school. I'm getting along, I'm bumbling along. But to get on that stage and really just sing from the heart, act from the heart, and just look out and have people watching you, what did that do to you mentally, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always been quite. There's never been the like people ask me like, when did you know that you'd made it, or when was that defining moment that changed your life? But for me, it's always been kind of a gradual climb as such, or a gradual development. Things have led to the next thing, and that was very much from school. I was part of a local pantomime, I think, when I was literally a babe, and my dad was the local policeman, the local Bobby, and played the dame in the pantomime. And I was literally a toddler, just dragged in to be stood at the front of the stage for like, a minute, if that. And then, but my first kind of professional uh, contract, if you like, was the Wizard of Oz at the Wolsey. And I think I was maybe 11. And I was one of the kids in the show. So there was a couple of teams of kids. So I would do the show maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And the Wolsey Theatre is a beautiful theatre. I'd been there growing up. My mum and dad had taken me to various shows there. And so it was familiar to me. But it was the first time, I guess, I was in a professional company and I got paid for being there. So an 11-year-old kid was going, hang on a minute, I get to do something that it doesn't feel like, it feels like just a passion and a love. I'm loving every second of being here, but I get a check at the end of it. So hang on a minute, it became a bit serious. I think that was a bit of a penny drop moment, because I thought, actually, I could make a living out of this. I could actually see myself doing this for the rest of my life. And although I was quite young, it really was a moment of, yeah, this is what I'm going to pursue. This is where I'm going to put my heart and soul in. That show really was quite important for starting out, even though it probably wasn't as direct as that. But if I look back on it now, I definitely realise that moment was very influential and important.
And I think that's the nice thing about someone like your career. It's not like oh, I was on a reality show and I've been dropped in onto the theatre stage. It's the fact you went through the stages of being a groupie to then, and then you were an understudy on My Fair Lady, and you had to do all the roles and appreciate every single role and have that drive that the more and more you're on stage and those little moments, especially as an understudy, to only do a couple of shows and go, I'm literally waiting in the wings all the time, and this is my moment. I can
Hmm.
actually like it.
I do.
Martin McCutcheon, for those that haven't gotten the dots, that you actually appreciate everything you're doing, which means, even today you're going, look, I'm on the vaudeville stage. This is what it's been building up to for all those years. So when you are an understudy, for those that don't know, talk to me about the process, because you're playing the character of Eliza Doolittle rather than the singer Eliza Doolittle.
Yes, yes,
I
yes,
got confused.
absolutely.
I'm a bit too
Yeah,
young.
yes, absolutely. It was my first West End contract, and it was for My Fair Lady, the musical. It opened at the National Theatre, and then it transferred to Drury Lane. I was actually a swing on the show and also an understudy to the lead, which was the role of Eliza Doolittle, who was played by Martine McCutcheon. And so it was a big deal. There was a lot of excitement about the show. Martine was huge at the time. She'd just come out of EastEnders. She was a big deal. She'd had a big storyline. She had a big album out. She was on the front of all the magazines. It was a big deal. And she got sick, as people do, and she went off quite early on in previews and went off. And of course, I went on. So at that time, it was a big story, and we didn't have social media, we didn't have phones or anything. So it was in all the papers. And I was working opposite people like Jonathan Pryce and Nicholas Le Prevost and Dennis Waterman. And so it was a big deal. 19-year-old me is on a stage work, literally in these big scenes opposite somebody like Jonathan Pryce, the Bond villain that he is, this legendary actor that's such a big deal. And for me personally, it was a big moment, but it was also a big moment um, nationally because of how big a deal Martine was. And so yeah, it kind of put me on the map very early on, kind of by default, really, not by mistake, but by luck.
What was it like though, having that press attention? Because like you said, back in the day, there wasn't social media, but there was obviously been a publicist for the show, which means that the person who's getting the word out there. But it's not really crisis management that, oh my God, we need to make sure Kerry's okay. But at 19 years old, when you're going, I'm just bobbing along, this is my first job, I'm on the big stage of the National Theatre. How did you find having that actual attention and that intrusive attention on you, going, who's Kerry Ellis? Where's Martin McCutcheon? We don't want Kerry, we want Martin, or we want to know who Kerry is because we don't know who anything about her yet.
Yeah, I mean, there was quite a lot of attention, but I think the focus, I mean, although I was in all the papers, the focus wasn't really on me. It was more about Martine not being there. They used to do announcements before a show. They don't really do it now, but they used to do like before a show would start, they would say, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, very sadly, the role of Eliza Doolittle won't be played by Martine McCutcheon, and you would hear 2,000 people kind of go, It will be played by Kerry Ellis, and I would hear that and be like, oh, this is quite something. But you know what? I think your focus is on the job. My focus was, well, it's my job to deliver as good a show as I can because it's a company effort. This isn't just about one person anyway. It's a company show, and my job is to play my part so that the show can carry on and be brilliant, and that those 2,000 plus audience members can go away and have enjoyed My Fair Lady. It wasn't about the drama as such, and that was my job. And I think I was it was a different time then. I think
Mm.
now celebrities and social media and uh, spotlights, like you say, things like reality shows and those kind of things, it does make it a lot more hyped up. Whereas I think in those, I mean, this was like in the, what was this,
2001,
1990,
I've got.
2000. Yeah. It's a different time. So although there was a lot of excitement about the situation, I think for me, it was a little kind of stepping stone that people had put me on the map So people were kind of aware of me, and that then led to other things. I then went on to do We Will Rock You, which then led on to Miss Saigon, and it was kind of just like a nice little stepping stone for me, really. And I don't. It wasn't suddenly like, like now, if you're on a big TV show, a big reality show, you're thrust into the public eye. It wasn't kind of like that. It was just another gradual kind of stepping stone in my little journey. So it was a bonus for me. It gave me a little bit of awareness for people to know who I was and what I was doing without the sudden, celebrity, massive attention. So yeah, I think it was kind of like that.
Do you regret that, not having that celebrity attention and going down the route? Because you're a lane performer, so you can sing, you can dance, you can act. We obviously know you can because you're amazing. But do you regret not going down that route of going into a show like EastEnders or Coronation Street and having that profile to then take the opposite way to the theatre rather than going down the theatre route first?
Yeah, I don't think I mean, I don't really believe in regrets or, wrong decisions, because I think you take the right decision for you at that time, and or you take the decision that's accessible for you at that time. So I don't regret anything, but I think for me, the theatre route was a way in that I saw that was accessible. So like drama school was a progression for me that I saw as an opportunity that it was realistic. Reality shows weren't really around then, because I remember going to college with Lee Latchford from Steps, and who else went to my college?
You've got people like Matilda Barker, who's obviously massive on TikTok now, Victoria Beckham, Ruthie Henshaw, Aaron Smith,
yeah,
Ben
those kind of
Richards.
people. So, but what I mean is there was no X Factor or Pop Idol, I guess,
Yeah.
was the thing that was coming, but that was a bit later. So it wasn't in my time, it wasn't in my era. And had it have been, maybe I would have gone down that route. I don't know. I don't.
But would you go onto a show like EastEnders or Coronation Street now? Or do you feel like, because I could just imagine you as a Mitchell. I look at you and I'm like, that's a Mitchell waiting to happen. And I'm like, and I feel like the problem with theatre now is there's a lot of castings based on their TikTok following, for example, or because you know someone because it's the face that's selling. And I think people like you and Ruthie Henshaw, Marisha Wallace have been really lucky because you were known in the arts before. You didn't need to prove yourselves. Whereas I think for a lot of others, it's a lot harder to come into the theatre now as an actor because people are just expecting numbers straight away now.
Yeah, it is difficult, and I think one of those considerations is people now look at your numbers on. It's not actually about your audition and your talent. They look at other things as well, as how many followers do you have, how much interaction do you have, are you going to put bums on seats? And I get that, from doing my own shows now, and being, I mean, I'm not a producer by any means, but I have now experience of selling shows, and what, if it's my own show, I'm more aware of the numbers and what we need, and we've got to cover costs, and what, to pay for the band and pay for the hiring of the theatre. And so I'm more aware of those costs now, which I wasn't, many years ago. And I mean, I wouldn't want to be a producer and take those risks at all. So I kind of understand sometimes them trying to get well-known faces in so that it puts bums on seats. I don't believe that it always works. It's the same with album sales. People think if you have a lot of followers on your socials, you're going to get that many album sales, but it doesn't work like that. I don't know why it doesn't, but it kind of doesn't always.
Because you follow a lot of the people now that you're seeing have got the big numbers, you follow it, especially girls are following because they like the way the person looks, but they're not engaged in it. They just want to see the makeup, the fashion. They don't actually want to interact. They just want the basics and then they move on. Or it's, old men who like to look at people and in a certain way.
Yeah, and that doesn't always then translate into ticket sales or into actually somebody buying a ticket and going out. Yeah, so I mean, I think throughout my whole career we've seen it. People getting cast because of their um, uh, awareness more than anything of people know who they are. I mean, go back to when it was My Fair Lady. I mean, Martine was huge. She'd just come out of a big um, a big soap, but she hadn't done theatre in years, and then it was going to be inevitable that she was going to struggle a little bit because she hadn't been doing theatre. So it's kind of inevitable. It's 8 shows a week. It's a big thing to commit to, and it's not just that something that anybody can do if they've not trained or not been, not ready for it. It's a different discipline.
We'll move it on 11 years. 2012, you auditioned for The Voice. And so when we think about what we've just talked about, the journey and then the kind of not regrets, but different avenues to go down, The Voice for me, for you, is quite pinnacle in the fact of no one turned around for you, and yet you are so far into your career and so successful already that it's a very different discipline, and yet it should go together, and yet didn't. So when you came away from that audition and whatever happened, how did it actually make you feel? Did it take you back to 2001 of being the understudy, or did you go, well, that just wasn't the path that was meant to be. I can still do what I actually want to do.
The Voice is an interesting one. I mean, Brian was so annoyed and angry at me that
And
I
that's
even
Brian
went.
May, by the way, for those listening, just in case they
Yeah,
don't know. You know
yeah,
Brian May very well.
yeah. And he was like, I'd recorded it before I'd even talked to him about it. He was like, "Why did you do that? Why did you put yourself, up for that?" And I mean, it came about. I got a call to go and be part of the live show. And at the time, it was the first one of The Voice coming over from America. We'd kind of had X Factor for ages, and The Voice was starting to be this new show. At the time, I thought about it, and I did. Yeah, there was moments of like, oh, should I, shouldn't I? But then I thought, you know what? It's an opportunity that I should have a go at. I've done loads of theatre. I've had albums out. I've had, do concerts. I've had theatrical success. That's great. But the industry always moves and it develops and it changes. And for me at that time, I just thought, you know what, I should just have a go at this. Why not? What's it going to do? And if anything, at the end of the day, I get to go and perform for the nation, and I get to sing, which is what I do, and I audition, which is what I do all the time anyway, and live on telly. So, what's the worst that can happen? I'm not going to perform badly. So it's just a matter of opinion, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm at a point where even then I'm in my career where I'm secure in myself to go and do that. And what's interesting is, so, whatever happened, they didn't turn around, that's fine. And what was interesting though, the aftermath of that, I suddenly was like worldwide trending on social media, and the outpour and the love and the support that I got, and the kind of like the attention that it got was kind of win-win for me, because it did what I needed it to do. And then obviously I kind of also opened a pathway for other people, because the year after, lots more theatre people went. Then more reality shows came, where lots more, again, successful theatre people started to go up for these things and do very well. And I think having longevity in this industry, and I talk about this in my books a lot, is that you have to be open to change. You have to be resilient, and you have to be able to move with the industry of how it changes. And sometimes it's going to go great and it's going to go in your favor, and sometimes it's not, and that's okay. It's about how you survive the next bit of your journey, and I think that's what gives me longevity. I also showed that it's okay to try different things publicly, and still have a career and be successful.
And if we take then another 13-year jump to now, if you think even just this year, what you've managed to achieve, and we're only coming to the end of March now, and yet you've done What If, you've just obviously done the 101 Dalmatians, you've done your one-woman tour. Like, you are busy, Kerry, probably more than you've ever been, and yet there's no slowing down for you. As you say, you're doing the vaudeville show this week, and then you're doing your tour at the end of the year. You're not stopping, and yet you've got all these kids coming through, all trying to do the same thing, and they're not doing it. You are, and that's all because of your longevity and being adaptable.
Yeah, well, I am busy, and I love that I'm busy. And it's funny because I keep saying to myself, maybe I should not do as much, and try and be at home a bit more and be with my kids. And but you know what, I'm just super grateful to be so busy, and all these wonderful opportunities come my way. And I love my job. I love performing. I love having variety in my life. I love that opportunities come my way, and I'm grateful to be able to do these things, and things like If Then, that we just did at the Savoy Theatre, was a gift. A show that you're right for, that is quite, it is the perfect character for me to play right now, with a wonderful company, with a wonderful cast, at the beautiful Savoy, with a brilliant score. To be able to do that was a gift. And I think I'm more grateful now with the opportunities that come my way, and I really kind of sit in the moment and take them in, than I did perhaps before. Before I would just, go job to job to job and look for the next thing. Whereas now I just really enjoy the moment.
But how do you find that moment when you're switching off, when you're off that theatre stage and just being the mum Kerry? How do you balance the fact of, yes, you're taking on another role, but like you say, that's 8 nights a week that you're, well, it's not 8 nights a week, there's only 7, but you're out the house most of the time because you're working or you're auditioning, you're carrying on doing things, and yet you're also just mum and the kids who want their mum at home on the weekend, in the evening, and yet you're going, well, if you want these activities, you want your food on the table, I've got to work for it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's the hardest bit about it, to be honest. That I don't think I've ever quite understood the work-life balance thing until having children, and actually trying to balance it. It's the most difficult bit. You basically want to have a clone of yourself and be in two places at the same time, and give equal amounts of attention and love to both areas. And it is hard. It's desperately hard to be away from my kids and my family, but I have to work. I love to work. It's who I am. It's who I've always been. I also think it's really important for them to see me out working, and that you have to work for a living, and also to find something that you love. I think that's a really important message. And I hope that does, instill in them. And there are moments when they're like, why are you away again? And can't you be here? And I will miss things. But I've done that my whole life. I've sacrificed things my whole life. I think of all the things that I've missed, birthdays and weddings and parties and gatherings, and I've missed so many things over the years as a sacrifice. But I've also experienced so many amazing things, and I think that's part of the job, part of the industry, and you kind of have to give your life to it. And again, I think that's what gives me longevity. It gives me a long career.
Final question for you, Carrie. If you bring that together, the idea of what you've sacrificed from both ends, whether it's the motherhood side or the theatre side when you're on maternity leave, for example, and then obviously the fear of rejection that you've gone through the years and working your way up to having your own one-woman show now, what would you have told that Kerry who entered Lane on that first day, age 16, going, right, this is what the future is going to be like for you if you get involved in this type of arts T career?
I would say to myself, don't worry, and don't sweat the small stuff. Enjoy the moment, sit in the moment, because that's a really difficult thing to do when you're younger. Everything's fast when you're younger, and you're always looking for the next thing. And then you feel like you've got all the time in the world, and you have. And then when you get older, you realize how fast it's gone, and how you do so many amazing things, and you're more grateful, you're more present when you're older, I think. So I would say to my younger self, enjoy the moment, and don't worry. We worry about how we look, we worry about how we perform, how we sound, how we are. And then you look back on yourself and go, that was great. You look great. You sound great. The moment is brilliant. Embrace it, enjoy it, and just be present, I think. And I think especially for modern day youngsters now, and even my own children, I want them to be present. And me, and us all as a community, be present, because we're so quick to be on our phones or look for the next thing or be so fast paced because everything is so quick. But just be in the moment and enjoy the moment and be grateful for the moments.
Oh, I absolutely love that. What a way to finish, Kerry. Massive thank you to Kerry Ellis. You can see us part of the Westway sessions at the Vaudeville Theatre on Monday, the 21st of April. For more information, visit nimaxtheatres.com. And later this year, see Kerry on her Queen of the West End tour by visiting kerryellis.com. And if you'd love to hear from your West End stars, there are episodes in Secure and Insecure with Georgia Castle and Charlie Brown, who are both in Mean Girls the Musical right now, Jay from S Club 8, who's in Back to the Future the Musical, and Bob Golding, who's currently on the Last Laugh play at the moment. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please follow, rate, review Secure and Insecure where you're watching or listening. On social media, I'm at Johnny Seifert at Secure and Insecure Podcast, and on TikTok at Johnny Seifert 92 is where you can find me. Kerry, where can people find you?
Oh, I'm mainly on my Instagram, which is Kerry Ellis 79. That's where I kind of post everything. But my website is quite up to date and has all my dates for my tour. The next tour is awaywithmedia.com. All the dates are on there as well if you want to check that out. But the vaudeville, check out the vaudeville, which is in a couple of weeks, which I'll be there. So come see us.
And if you want to see me, you can see me at the Vaudeville, or I'll be at the Potter's Bar date for Kerry later this year. If you want to meet me, Potter's Bar is where you'll find me. I'm Johnny Seifert. Thanks so much for watching or listening. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.